This is a story about the time the house caught on fire. This is when I was a little kid. I was probably 7 or 8 years old. And we lived in a part of Weed, California, a little small mountain town. One time during the winter, somebody, it was probably my mom, put kindling into the wood stove and didn't see the streaks of pitch that were littered throughout the kindling. And so what happened was our wood stove, the flue caught on fire. Probably because the buildup of pitch, and it was just like the straw that broke the camel's back. So the flue caught on fire, and which in turn set our roof on fire. And we knew that because the next door neighbors came in and knocked on the door, said your roof is on fire. So it's very cold, it's winter, the roof, there's flames coming out of our flue. So my mom and myself and my younger brother are all huddled in the living room near the front door. And the neighbors come over, and all the dads have their hoses out, and they're up on the roof and watching it to make sure that they can contain the fire. And we are all by the front door because as soon as they shout "get out," we could evacuate, right? And we're like in our pajamas and everything, so we're huddled there near the front door waiting to see if we need to evacuate, or see if they put out the fire. And my room, my brother's room, was off the living room, and as well as my parents'. My bedroom was way down the hall towards the back of the house. And I wanted my stuffed animal. I had a teddy bear that had been given to me when I was a child. It was a wind-up. You wound it up and it played music, and I wanted Teddy really bad. And I was crying and crying and crying. I wanted Teddy, and my mom just kept saying no, because we're worried that the roof, the roof was gonna be on fire and we have to evacuate. And I remember I begged her and begged her and begged her for that stuffed animal, and I wanted to go back and get it, and she kept saying no, and I just wanted it, and that's all I wanted. And I remember thinking, if she says yes, she doesn't care about me. She doesn't care if I get caught back there and the roof's on fire. And I remember it was kind of in retrospect, it was like, I think, a test. And so I just begged and begged and begged, and finally she relented. She said, go get it, go run, go get it. And I remember running down that hall. Well, I was happy I was going to go get my teddy bear, right? Because I really wanted Teddy. I didn't want him back there. And the whole time I'm running back there, I'm thinking, wow, she let me go back there, and the roof could be on fire. So it was like that juxtaposition of being really happy I got my way, and really happy I got to go get Teddy out, and thinking, why didn't she go get it, And so anyway, so I went, got the teddy bear, went back into the living room, and all was clear. After all that, they got the fire under control, and we never had to evacuate the house. So that is my story about when the roof caught on fire.
When the roof caught fire. We lived on the edge of a city of trees, between the borders of dangerous and sublime. As a child, my expectations of my mother and our roof were very similar. For that reason, I spent much of my time wondering how easily each might collapse. In my memories, my questions thundered over the sound of fire eclipsing overhead. Why did she let me go? What would she say if I had never made it back? I ran down the hall, already imagining myself gone, imagining flames cascading onto the child's body that was mine, trying to imagine, how my mother's face might look after that. As a child, I began to hear my mother relinquishing me to the flames and my teddy bear's metallic melodies. As a child, I began to hear how softly she held on.
It was so different having my own story told back to me in a different way. It was like watching oral history in a real condensed version. The poem that she wrote, I thought, was just lovely. There were some really strong lines in it that I would like to give back to you. One strong line was, "I ran down the hall already imagining myself gone." Another one is, "As a child, I began to hear how softly she held on." And just one of the best pieces of the poem, "Why did she let me go? What would she say if I had never made it back?" It was really interesting. I told the story as an adult looking back on a childhood incident, and she gave voice to that character. It was really interesting. It was like looking into a mirror, not quite recognizing myself, but knowing that I'm still there. So thank you for letting me be a part of your project. Good luck. Bye.
When I first saw this memory, I was taking in the story and I was thinking about it, and I realized that as I was hearing her memory, I was absorbing it visually, and so I thought about it afterwards, thinking about the fact that I had the responsibility of making this into a poem. And I love creating images. I love writing them, and I love reworking them from my own memory. But I realized, of course, this is not my own memory. I felt that my responsibility as a poet was to retell her story and to bring out something in it that hadn't necessarily existed before. And so for that reason, I decided to try to stay away from the visual aspect. But I realized what the poem really had to be about was the relationship between Laura and her mother. It's the moment at which, I think that at some point or another we all go through this, where we see our parents as these awe-inspiring, our idols. And at some point or another we realize that they have flaws and they are human. There was a crucial point in this memory where, this is happening in the midst of a fire. Her house is on fire. Probably like the third time that I watched this, that I was taking notice of her tone. And I realized that the tone of her voice changes very harshly when she says, go get it. And you can see this in her face. You can hear it in her voice. So I realized that this is like the crucial moment of this memory, is when her mother tells her that. And thinking, what is going on in that little girl's mind? And how is she thinking about this? And is she really thinking about her teddy bear, or is she thinking about her mother? What I wanted to expand on was, how has that shaped her? How has that shaped her? But I realized, well, there is no conclusion for this poem. It has to be left up to the reader, and in that way it actually, I believe, implicates the reader a lot, because like I said, I think at some point or another we all go through this in our life. I've had projects where I've had to try and speak from a different person's point of view. And that's something completely different, because the person that I chose was my grandmother, and my grandmother's passed away, but I also knew her very well. And in this, I had to take somebody who I don't know at all. In writing this poem, I realized, well, I will sum it up the way that my professor summed it up, which I think is a lot more eloquent than I would sum it up, is that we each have a responsibility to our poem and to our poem's subject. And I was able to really grasp that statement with this project, because I thought, okay, so this is not about me as a poet. This it's not even necessarily about Laura. This is about her experience, and this is about creating something from it. And so in a way it becomes a lot bigger than just her and me making this really indirect connection. We all have these memories, and whether it's the roof catching on fire, or whether it's, I don't know, like fishing in a stream and the fish pulls you out to sea or something crazy like that. Yeah, they all follow the same thread. And I hadn't really thought about that. We all have these different stories. But that's where that connectingness comes from.